Okay, so I may have mentioned it at the end of the last episode, but our current setup actually kind of sucks. Okay? It has three major problems. The first problem is that if we wanted to hook up a second machine, such as the redstone furnace, um, there's actually no way to put the power from this machine into the power from the first steam dynamo into the second. So what we'd have to do is we have to put down the redstone furnace, create a new steam dynamo, rotate it, and then fill it up with water, and then fuel, and then we can use the redstone furnace. This is extremely wasteful because at some point this steam dynamo is going to make an excess of redstone that we should be putting into this machine instead. But instead we're creating an entirely new steam dynamo using wasting more materials to do so, and then creating additional waste over here. The second problem is that when this steam dynamo actually fills up its internal buffer, and so does its accompanying machine, it'll actually waste whatever excess power that it has to use, just into nothing. It'll completely disappear, and that is a complete waste of whatever solid fuels that we put inside of it. The third problem is that whenever we pulverize something in here, probably should have done this ahead of time. We get the pulverized iron and we put it into our inventory, and then we throw it into the furnace and then cook it. And that's actually like extremely annoying. And we should try to automate this somehow so that the results of the pulverized dust, goes into a furnace and cooks itself, but without us needing to do anything about it. We're going to solve all of those problems by the end of today's episode. So let's go ahead and break everything that we have. Remember that if you're playing in survival, you can actually use the crescent wrench to pick those things up, or the crescent hammer to pick those things up without having to break them fully. So let's solve that first problem where we want to use the output of one steam dynamo to power two machines. Go ahead and place down your steam dynamo, and then craft something called leadstone flux ducts. Now you're actually gonna need lead to craft these, and lead is a little bit more rare. You have to go down a little bit further into caves in order to find it, and it usually spawns adjacent to silver as well, if that helps. So collect a lot of it. This is a really handy resource for thermal expansion. So you have your flux ducts, and what these basically do is they act like a tunnel. If I come here and put some down, you'll notice that when you put them down, they'll actually connect themselves in like a little network or a tunnel. You're able to put energy inside of this network, and it'll automatically flow to anything that needs it. So let's go ahead and put down two pulverizers, two machines, and we'll go ahead and hook them all up using the same flux duct network like this, as if you were like wiring it together, for instance. And then we're going to go ahead and rotate our steam dynamo around, fuel it up with water and coal. Okay, and now we'll see that the two pulverizers are actually receiving power now from the same source, which is great. That's exactly what we wanted. So the excess power that is stored in the system is only going to be stored in one dynamo instead of two. And we only have to maintain this one to keep both of these on. It's worth noting, though, that a steam dynamo only produces 40 redstone flux per tick. And remember that a tick in Minecraft is basically 1/20th of a second. And whenever these pulverizers are on, they actually use, roughly about... They actually use about 20 redstone flux per tick. It says 18 here just because it's not fully rolled up yet. Now it says 20. So our power demand for this network is basically 40 when both of these machines are on, and then our input production is 40 redstone flux per tick as well. Which means that we're basically being perfect in equilibrium, which is, good. Good, but let's say I expanded this network to include 4 pulverizers. Now when all these are running, we're actually using 80 redstone flux per tick and only producing 40, which means that there's actually no way that we could keep all this on at once. The obvious solution to this is just to place some more steam dynamos. Now our power grid produces 120 redstone flux per tick, so that would actually leave us with 40 excess, and we can get rid of that to make it perfectly balanced again so that we're not creating any excess energy that we don't need. So I actually wanted to pause right here and take a moment to explain why I keep saying the term grid excess and what that actually means. So when you have a power network, you generally have things that are producing power to that network, i.e. the steam dynamos, and something that is consuming power from that network, which would be any machine that is drawing power from it. So the grid excess is going to be whatever the production of energy is minus the consumption is. So if you're producing 80 redstone flux per tick and you're only consuming 20 of it, you have 60 grid excess, and that 60 energy is likely being wasted. It's not actually necessary for this grid to run. Generally, you want to keep your grid excess closer to 0 because that means that your network is as optimized as possible. Obviously, if you have negative grid excess, that means that you're actually not producing enough power to keep all of your machines on, so you probably want to add more production to that system. One situation where you don't have to worry about grid excess is if you're actually planning for the future. Like, if you're only getting a couple machines set up, but you want to have extra power production for the future when you eventually add more, that's perfectly fine. Another case is if you have a system that produces a lot of power, but only using a fuel that you don't have that often. Like if your power is going to not always be on at all times. In that case, you might have a positive grid excess some of the time, but a negative grid excess other times. But that's actually okay if you store your excess inside of a battery and discharge it later. Like imagine if you use solar panels and your solar panels during the day greatly exceeded your power needs, and then you put the excess into a battery so that the network could still work at nighttime. What if we had a way to taking our production side and then storing it in a medium that has a massive internal buffer for redstone flux, and then that medium will actually output to your consumers, which means that even if there is an excess, even if you are actually producing more energy than you are using at any given time, it'll be actually saved, at least until that medium gets full. There is a way of doing this. Let's go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and make a new network over here with one steam dynamo, and then a leadstone flux duct. And just so with the leadstone flux duct, I'm going to rotate it over, and I'm going to use something called an energy cell. Now, an energy cell, I want to point out in its recipe uses something called a redstone conductance cell, which is made out of electrum. Electrum is not an ore that you can find underground. You have to make it, but you have to make it by combining silver and gold together to make electrum. You can make something called an electrum blend, and you make that by crafting pulverized gold and silver together, and it'll get you 2. So basically what you would do is you would get some gold and you would stick it into a pulverizer, pull it out, do the same with silver, pull it out, and then take the result of that, craft it together to get electrum, and then smelt that electrum into an ingot in order to create your energy cell. So we take our energy cell and let's place it right there. And if we power up, this is actually backwards, wow. If we power up steam dynamo, you will see that the power comes out of the steam dynamo into the energy cell, and it is now filling up with its massive 2 million redstone flux buffer, which is obviously a lot bigger than the steam dynamo's 40,000 and the pulverizer's 20,000. This gives us a really big backlog to catch any excess energy that is being created by our producers so that they can stay productive even when our consumers don't actually need that much. So this energy cell is capable of, gaining energy, but how do we actually get it out? Because if we pull a leadstone conduit over through here, or sorry, leadstone flux duct, my mistake, you will see that it's not actually receiving power. Go ahead, take a look at the surrounding side of each side of the energy cell. You'll notice that it is actually, that they actually have this like blue little hash. And that blue hash means that that side of the energy cell is actually an input, so it's only going to accept energy coming into it. It'll pull from any producers into the energy cell. If we want to pull out of the energy cell, we need to find a face that has it has orange, and the orange side of an energy cell is actually underneath it by default. So if we wanted to pull energy out of this energy cell, we have to route a leadstone flux duct from the bottom of it out and then up, and then we can route that into our pulverizers. You see now they're gaining power, draining out of the energy cell. For the record, it is actually possible to change the output side of an energy cell. go ahead and bring yourself to the face of the energy cell, which will be the side that looks like this. And if you come over to the right side and click on configuration, you will see a breakdown of all these sides and their colors. In the center is the face of it, and the face to the left of it will be the one that, you know, this side, and then this one will be the right side, and the top one is always the one that faces up, and then the one that faces down, and then this is the back, the opposite of the face. So if we want to change one of the sides to be an output or to completely ignore something, we can cycle through the different options by just clicking on them. So if I wanted energy to output from the left side, now it's doing so. So I can get rid of these, and I can hook up my network like that. And once again, I can expand the production of this network by just adding more, you know, energy producers. Okay. So now this network is effectively getting 120 redstone flux per tick, and at most we'll be using 40. So we'll always have an excess that will bleed into, that will kind of pool up in the energy cell. Now, for the record, with any tech mod, this is usually a really good pattern to use for managing your energy network. You want to have producers on one side going into something that is capable of holding a lot of charge, and then that thing that's capable of holding a lot of charge will carry out to your producers, or carry out to your consumers, sorry, your energy consumers. That way you eliminate any wasted energy or potential from trying to fill up consumers that are already full, and that will instead get put into the, you know, the energy cell. So you keep all of your producers on one side of your facility, and then everything that uses, you know, consumes power in one area. So we solved the first two problems presented at the beginning of this video. Let's solve the last one. If you don't recall, we want to automatically move the output of the pulverizer into a furnace. I'm going to go ahead and give you a tip, which is to craft a redstone furnace. If you take a look at the redstone furnace, what it basically does is it uses redstone flux to do basically what a furnace would. It will smelt items. Not only will it smelt items, but it actually does so a lot better than a normal furnace was. A redstone furnace, as you will notice right now, actually works a lot faster than a regular furnace does. Furthermore, if you're using a steam dynamo, it is actually more efficient. A redstone furnace powered by a steam dynamo will actually create 12 items per piece of coal, as opposed to the regular 8 if you're using it in a furnace. So let's solve our pulverizer problem. You may have noticed while looking at this machine that it has many colored faces on it. If you right-click on the GUI, you'll notice that these colors correspond to slots inside the pulverizer. Specifically, its input slot, its output slot, and then what is called its byproduct slot. Remember how, you know, pulverizing iron gives you a small chance of getting nickel. In any item's input slot, we'll try to pull items through its corresponding side. So, you know, the blue input will try to pull items out of the adjacent block corresponding to its side. Any output will try to push items out of the machine in the direction that it is facing from, you know, the colored side. I'll try and demonstrate this if it's confusing. I'll put down an oak chest on top of this, and I'll actually need to turn this pulverizer to do auto input. Now remember, this top part is the input, blue input, so it's going to try and pull items out of this direction, this block. So I'm going to go and put iron in there, and you see it disappears from the chest and is pulled into the blue slot of the pulverizer. Now you saw me open up this configuration menu. Similarly to the energy cell, this allows you to change the color of any side. So I could set the left side to be an input. Or if I change the left side to be yellow, I could change it to be an output for the byproduct. Or I could change it back to red. Furthermore, I could change it to be orange, which makes it look like this. This means that it'll try to put both byproducts and the normal output out through the same side, this orange side. Keep in mind the redstone furnace has a very similar GUI. It has the blue input slot, and then now this output slot is actually orange, so it'll go out of the orange sides. So in order to solve the problem discussed at the beginning of the video, we have to we have to take the output of the pulverizer and put it into a blue slot on the redstone furnace. The quickest way to do that would be from this side to this side. So let's go to the redstone furnace, configure the left side to take input. See, now it's blue. And we're going to take an item called an item duct. Now there's two types of item ducts. Well, there's actually many types, but there's two types of normal item ducts. There is opaque and the regular type. These work a lot like the flux ducts, except what they do is they move items instead of energy. The only difference between the opaque version and the normal version is that you can see the items flowing through the regular version, whereas you cannot with the opaque. You will have to create the opaque version because the regular version actually takes hardened glass, which you can't make right now. So we're going to allow the pulverizer to output into this item duct, and that item duct tunnel will go into the input of the redstone furnace. And you can see it's actually already doing it. A pulverized iron just went through into the input of the redstone furnace, and now it is cooking. Great. One more basic improvement we can do is to put a chest on the output side of the redstone furnace, which will make sure that the output comes out of here. And it gets stored into a chest. If the output of any machine becomes full, like there's a 64 stack of iron here, this machine won't be able to work and will consider itself jammed. So we want to make sure that that is being cleared into some kind of bigger, chest. And there you go. Now any ore that we put in here will automatically be turned into dust and then be pulled into a redstone furnace, and we can come back like 10 minutes later and it'll take a whole stack and turn it into double the amount of ingots. So I didn't specify this yet, but there's 3 types of logistic, allowing you to move 3 types of things. You're allowed to move energy, items, and one more thing, you're allowed to move fluids. If I go into JEI and I grab a fluid duct, and once again, there is a transparent and opaque version, but the transparent versions of fluid ducts actually only take normal glass, so these are really easy to make actually. And fluid ducts do exactly what you expect them to. They move liquids from one place to the other. If you're getting tired of filling up your steam dynamos with water, you can try hooking up a system that automatically fills them with water. And I'm going to grab myself something called a tank. I'm going to grab myself something called a portable tank, the one made by thermal expansion. Now, a portable tank is basically capable of, if I place it down, you can put water inside of it, and it'll hold up to 20 millibuckets of any fluid that you put inside of it. And then you can pick it up with the crescent hammer, and it actually retains whatever fluid was in it when it was on the ground. How sick is that? You can probably already guess what I'm going to do, but we need to insert water into the fluid duct network here in order to have that water flow into the internal buffer for water that the steam dynamos have. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my portable tank, which has water inside of it, and I'm going to place it on top. You can see it gets connected. Now, right now, this portable tank is in input mode, so it's actually going to try and siphon things out of the network. But if we right-click it with a crescent hammer, it switches to output mode, and all the water flows out of the tank into the steam dynamos. Great. And you can tell that it's in output mode because the hash on the bottom of the portable tank is orange. If I put the input, it'll actually go back up. And it's kind of like sucking up whatever didn't actually fill into a steam dynamo, whatever's kind of like hanging out around. And whenever you want to refill this, you don't have to actually take the portable tank and refill it off. You can actually just fill up the portable tank itself. And eventually, we managed to fill up the portable tank. So since I was able to actually fully fill up the portable tank, that means that the internal buffer of all the steam dynamos is full, and the individual capability of the ducts to hold their own, because every single duct has its own internal buffer as well. You'll notice that with fluid ducts as well.
And then the backlog finishes in the portable tank, and this is now, full. So you now know pretty much everything that you need to know to not only use machines in thermal expansion, but to also create logistic networks between them as well. You can pretty much figure everything else out here on your own. I also wanted to give a quick little practical demonstration on how to improve our steam dynamo production as well. Create something called an aqueous accumulator. And behind our little fluid network here, we're going to go ahead and create a 3x3 pond of water. And in the center of that, put down this aqueous accumulator that you just made. This device will, as long as it's surrounded by water, will fill up its own internal buffer with water for basically free. This is literally just free water generation. It doesn't actually cost anything because the water around it never actually disappears. So we can connect this up with a fluid duct. And as you might imagine, we're going to bring it over to the portable tank. And now our steam dynamos will be filled up with water for free automatically, and their buffers will practically always be full now. So now we don't have to worry about adding water to our steam dynamos, but we still have to go through the kind of annoying process of adding fuel to them. We can automate this as well. Go ahead and put down an oak chest. I guess it could be any type of chest. And go ahead and put in any kind of burnable that you want in here. I'm just going to put it in coal. So we basically want this chest to output the coal into an item duct network that will push it into all of the steam dynamos to keep them fed with fuel. So we're going to go ahead and do that. We're going to hook up an item duct. So I'm going to take out of this item duct. I'm going to route an item duct network around. And then like this. And it looks kind of terrible right now, but remember we can use the crescent wrench to remove any connections that we don't actually want. So we have this entire network set up, but you might notice that no coal is actually being pulled out of the system. This is because chests, unlike the machines over here, don't actually have a slot that tells them that they should be constantly automatically outputting out of its own inventory into a network. For instance, the Pulverizer knows that it should take things from this red slot and put them out of there all the time. Vanilla chests don't know to do this. We can actually solve this problem by crafting something called a servo. Take the servo and put it on the kind of the cap here on the end that we want to pull out of, and it'll turn it into a servo on this side. So we can set up the servo to either have a blacklist or a whitelist. We don't actually care what's coming out of this, so we'll just keep it as an empty blacklist. But it's still not actually moving anything. That's because servos actually accept redstone signals. Servos, like a lot of thermal expansion devices, actually accept redstone input. So if I take a lever and give it a signal, it'll start working. See, it pulled one block of coal out, and it's going to go along the network. If you don't actually care about using redstone for any of these devices, you can come into them, right-click, and click on redstone control, and you can set the redstone control to ignored. So this will just always be on regardless of the redstone signal around it. You can also set it to be low so that it is only on when it's not receiving a redstone signal. So great, this works. So it's on and working, but you might notice a weird problem going on, which is that all of the coal is actually going to one place at a time. It'll fill up one dynamo, and then once that dynamo is finished filling, it'll actually work on the next one. Which isn't really what we want. We actually want it to distribute them evenly so that all the dynamos can be on at one time. This is actually because of the way that the AI logic works on... because of the way the pathing logic works on item ducts, which is something that I don't really want to explain in this episode, but the way that we can fix that is to remove our servo, which will break the item duct attached, but that's fine. And we need to actually craft a better servo. You can see that there's actually tiers to them. And the lowest tier that we need is a reinforced servo. This is going to require some of the electrum that we made. But fortunately, you do get 2 whenever you make... But fortunately, the recipe always makes 2. So we can go ahead and install that servo. And we can set the pathing option for it to round robin. Okay, so if I set the redstone signal to ignored, it'll start pulling items out. And you notice that since the servo is a lot better, it actually works a lot faster. It pulls out bigger stacks of items faster. So it's actually already done pulling out before one is even reached. So you see as the coal comes through, the first one gets sent to the middle. The next gets sent there. The next gets sent there. And you'll notice that pattern repeat. So just remember the round robin mode is going to send items to anything that is acting for it evenly. It pulls one item out and says, okay, you're going to go there. The next one goes here. The next one goes there, 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 there. As opposed to the normal way where it sends it to, one thing, one valid thing until it's full.